Okay, hello everybody. This is Stephanie Ritter-Mott, and I'm the president of Courageous Living, a life coaching business. And I have a special guest today, someone that I've known for a number of years that I met through my former workplace, Chris Johnson. He's the founder and CEO of On Target Living. He is out of Bath, Michigan. That's where his headquarters are at. And he and his family, it's a family affair. They're authors of the book On Target Living Nutrition. And then there's also Target to Table, which is the book I have. You'll see I have things actually tabbed, recipes that I've used. And also a book called Capacity, and I'm hoping that we can talk about that a little bit later in our conversation. So Chris, I would love to have you share a little bit about your journey on how you kind of got to the nutrition and fitness arena. I know you probably have always been interested in it, but kind of how did you get there to where we're at today with On Target Living?
Well, Stephanie, it was a long journey. Growing up, I grew up in Michigan. I went to Sexton High School, so I'm born and raised right here in mid-Michigan. And I never really left. I went to Western Michigan as a business economics major, and then I went back to grad school at Michigan State. But I've really never left this. But I was always interested in sports. And growing up, I was really, like most kids, I was just a terrible eater. I didn't really know anything about it. I ate a bunch of crap like, SpaghettiOs and bologna sandwiches and Kool-Aid and Pepsi. And I had bad skin for about 15 years of my life. And I took oral meds and topical creams. And the doctors just kept coming back to my parents. Your son just has sensitive skin. There's nothing we can do for him. And reality, which we're facing today, is I had bad digestion. I had a bad immune system. And when I started eating better, I quit drinking cow's milk in 1977. I had a professor at Western that was really kind of way ahead of his time. And then I started getting better. And that kind of made me start thinking. I got into bodybuilding in the early 80s and kind of learned how the bodybuilders get leaner. So I learned a little bit about that. And then I went to work for Butternut Bread and realized I was sleep deprived and went through that for about a year and a half. And then I went to work for Frito-Lay. And after about a year at Frito-Lay, I decided I needed to do something. I went to grad school at Michigan State and exercise physiology. And when I got out of there, I worked at a hospital doing stress testing in Grand Rapids at a hospital. And then I started speaking. And then I worked for a physician for about a couple of years out in Mason, Dr. Barry Saltman, which has really learned a lot from that beautiful man. And I had a lot of high risk people. I had diabetes. I actually had a heart replacement, COPD. And that was the beginning of my training in that really unhealthy world. And then I went to work for the MAC, Michigan Athletic Club, as the fitness director. And we had one of the largest personal training programs in the world. And so I look back and I had so many great mentors, so many great people around me to learn from. And lots of years, 20,000 hours of personal training. And I started speaking, and one thing led to another. And then I really liked the speaking end of it. And I started getting a lot more requests to speak. And so I left my job at the Michigan Athletic Club and opened my business in 2006. And I went full time in 2008, traveling around the world speaking and helping organizations help their people get better and feel better and perform better. And then we just slowly built the team. I brought on Don Miller in the 2008, and then we added a few more people. My son came on in 2011. My daughter came on in 2014. And now we have a team of 8, and we built a headquarters out in Bath, as you mentioned. And we're traveling around the world helping organizations be their best, feel their best. So that's the journey right there.
And I love it because it just shows you that nothing in our life is ever wasted. We go for education or our jobs or people that have crossed our paths, and they all play a part, don't they, to where we're at and along the way?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Like I remember when I was working for Butternut Bread, I hated it. I was working 80 hours a week and getting up at 2:30 in the morning. It was my first year of marriage. But I realized really how important sleep was. I was a young man in my 20s and I was sleep deprived. And of the people I worked with, it was pretty amazing. We had a bunch of great people, but most of them are now not living today because sleep deprivation. And then I went to work for Frito-Lay, and I learned a lot about the grocery stores and how people shop and buying practices. And at the time I'm thinking, what am I doing? But when I go back in time, it's really connect the dots along the way. And then we all know when we go through some challenges, I ruptured my patella tendon in 2000. I've never been on any type of medication, really never been to the hospital. And I kind of learned that rehab end. And I think through some of these trials and tribulations we all have in our life, you come back with some really good nuggets, and that allows you to be real with audiences and understand the pain that people are going through and the challenges. And so, yeah, I truly believe that we're all given these little gifts. Sometimes we just don't notice.
In your last video, I loved it, on YouTube, you talked about asking the right question. So I was wondering if we could start there, that, you know, you were talking about there's something kind of going on in your body, the importance of asking the right question, which I'm guessing you mean ask yourself the right question, like what's going on, what am I feeling?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think your original thing is, I learned a long time ago that everybody's in a different place. And so when I'm sitting down, and again, we learned a lot by making mistakes. So I've made a lot of mistakes. But I started learning very quickly that it's not about information that gets people to do stuff. It's really about emotions and habits and all the behavior stuff. And so I really started looking at our training program. We had amazing trainers and education, and we had the best. But to get people to take action, you got to really work with what do they truly want. So you got to get in the behavior, then you got to understand what's driving them. You know, what's their purpose, what's their why, and then how do you build a habit? And that's a big thing we talk about in Ontario Living, is how do you get people to build one habit at a time? Because if you overwhelm people, they're not going to do it. And what we've learned over time is then it becomes a diet or some kind of crazy exercise program. So how do you create a sustainable lifestyle that people love? And when you move people from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation, that's when you capture them. So now they're doing stuff because they want to, not because they have to. And so when we look at the second piece of that is, we want to teach people how to pivot. Because I can give anybody, if people ask me, in fact, people used to come when they first came to work, why don't you just tell me what to eat? Or why don't you just tell me what to do on a workout? I can do that, but it doesn't work unless it becomes yours. And you have to learn how to pivot. And what pivoting means is you need to make, if you're going out to dinner, you can do whatever you want. If you want a glass of wine or a beer or a pizza or whatever you want, you have the ability to pivot when you want to. Now it's your plan and it's sustainable. So when you go into the next direction, you start talking about teaching people about being curious. Because if they're more curious, start asking better questions, they're going to get a better answer. So if somebody comes to me, and this is what we teach them, whether it's in a training or a conference or a one-on-one or whatever it might be, first thing we start talking about is you have ownership, you have the power, but we're going to teach you to be more curious. So for example, if you have high cholesterol, don't say, hey, what cholesterol medication should I be taking? Why is my cholesterol out of balance? Okay, now we're on to something. Or why do I have acid reflux? Or, I don't sleep well anymore, or my blood pressure is too high. So when you get them to start having that little self-awareness, then you start capturing them. Okay, that makes sense. Because we know the human body has amazing ability to heal itself if we give it a better environment to heal. And that's your immune system, everything goes with that. So that's a big step, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because when people start getting curious, like, I don't like doing that. I don't like eating that for breakfast. Okay, what don't you like? What do you like? Now we're starting to go in that direction, that now they're developing it. And then they have it forever. And that's what I've learned over the years, is now they have the tools. I tell them all the time, I don't want to coach or train you every day. I don't even want to train you every week. I want to train you maybe a couple times a year so you have the power to make these decisions. And that's what I think we do a good job of, is helping people to understand, like, now it's Tab Jackson, which is one of our executive coaches. I've known Tab for 45 years. He's one of the best human beings I've ever met. And he always says this: I'm not going to work harder than you are. And I love that, because I'm not going to do the work for you. I'm not going to do the push-ups for you. I'm not going to eat the wheatgrass for you. You have to work, and I'll work as hard as you want me to work, but I want you to make sure you're working as hard as I am.
Can you just do a little bit more of a deeper dive on that, as far as now that the person's aware of, I need to take ownership of this, I need to take ownership of my health, and ask those questions, how can they get a habit out of that or build a habit?
Yeah, so when you're building habits, we have to understand a habit doesn't happen in 21 days like people say it does.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't. And we all have habits. So I always kind of bring this out in when I'm speaking into a big stage is I'll ask the audiences, how many of you put your right shoe on first? Raise your hand. And then some of them raise their hands and some of them look around like, I don't even know what shoe I put on first. But you look down, you see two shoes. So most of what we do every day is habitual. So we have to tap into, we have this thing called the conscious mind, and the conscious mind takes energy. And so if we had to drive to work every day and think about everything we had to do, and we would be exhausted by 9 or 10 in the morning. So thank goodness we have this basically three levels of the mind, the conscious mind, and that's where habits are formed, but they take energy. And so if you give people, hey, I'm going to quit smoking, I'm going to start eating better, I'm going to work out 6 days a week, that conscious mind is like, oh my gosh, this is so hard to do. But once you could take one habit, like teaching a kid how to tie their shoes, and they repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, now none of us have to think about tying our shoes. Now it's moved from the conscious mind into the subconscious, and that's where your habits live. But that takes time to put it in there. And so when we start talking to people and help them understand that I only want you to really focus on for the next couple of weeks is drinking more water. Now that people's true story, they're like, that's all you want me to do? Yep. Because once you build that habit, then we can go to another one, and then we go to another one, and we go to another. And some habits are easier to build than others. We all know this. You know, I tell a story about flossing, and I go to my dental hygienist, and my dental hygienist, I love her to death. I go to Dr. Mark Mallory, and she's always picking on me and said, you know, how's your flossing going? Can you lie to your dental hygienist about flossing? No way. So they know right away that you're not. And so I asked her one day and I said, Angie, what should I do? She said, let's do this. I want you to start flossing twice a week. And I said, is that enough? She said, you don't floss. It's a great start. So now I'm starting to floss a couple times a week, and it's turned into a habit, and then maybe 3 or 4 times. Like I'm a professional flosser. So I'm sharing this story with a large audience, and this dentist in the front row says, that's not enough. And I said, what do you mean it's not enough? He goes, you need to floss every day. And I felt really, deflated. So then I thought to myself, no. I threw it back in his lap and I said, hey, how often are you exercising? He said, I'm not. I said, what if you went for a walk a couple times a week for 5 minutes? How would that help you? And he emailed me back about 6 months later, and he goes, I got to tell you, you've inspired me to start taking these. I'm now moving my body on a regular basis. That's what you talk about habits. They have to be slowly, you have to build them, and you have to get them in the subconscious mind. And then you have the unconscious mind, and that's where the galaxy of all these new thoughts, and that's the kind of frontier. But if people start understanding the brain and how it works, you got to move from the conscious to the subconscious, and it takes time. And that's why you can't overwhelm people.
Yeah. You talk about rest, eat, and move. And that's kind of like the theme, it seems like, with a lot that you do. Can you share a little bit more about that foundation of resting, eating, and moving?
Yeah, so when you really work with people, the human body and the mind and everything that goes with it, it's all encompassing. So it's never like, oh, I'm going to eat great, but I'm not moving. Or you got a lot of people that really are killing themselves in the gym, but they don't get any sleep. So to make the human body really perform at a high level and feel their best, you have to have a combination of these lifestyles. And so again, the first thing we target is rest. Do you understand stress, how to manage it? Do you understand diaphragmatic breathing? Do you understand sleeping and creating space? If you don't have that, we know right now, if I'm stressed, I can't digest. Nutrition is not going to be the benefit there. And then from there, we move into the eating piece. And that's really how to fuel the body and understand it. And food is love. And there's so many factors of food, but you start helping them with that. And then from there, you go into the movement piece. But we're not going to start with the movement piece until you've got the rest piece down. Because we all know breathing and sleeping are the foundational pillars. You can't survive without sleep and breathing. You can survive without moving because obviously most of our country doesn't move. So it's building blocks of all three, and you don't have to be perfect on any of them. You just have to understand a little bit more, and then you start getting amazing results. For example, if people are not getting enough rest, they cannot have healthy testosterone levels or hormones. It's impossible. So the big thing out there right now, especially the boomers, is everybody's on these bioidentical hormones. And so people come to us all the time and I'm like, well, the reason your testosterone level is low for both men and women is because you have too much stress and not enough rest. It's not about getting more in the gym or taking cod liver oil. It's about starting that pillar. So that's our foundation, is how you rest, how you eat, and how you move. And when you get people to start, now the results go crazy. People get amazing results. Their body's healing themselves. They're off their type 2 diabetic medication. They no longer have acid reflux. And now they have the power to take care of themselves.
What's the link there when you go into the business, and why is it important to get the companies to kind of buy into the healthy part?
So the reason we started doing more of that is companies, when you think about any organization on the planet, the greatest asset of their people, their greatest asset of the corporation or organization is their people, and then the greatest asset of the people, that's what we wrote Capacity, is we realized that more and more organizations really weren't paying attention to this piece of performance in their workforce. And so we started getting more and more demands to speak, hey, we want you to come in and talk about nutrition. But we slowly realized not every organization's interested in that, but they are interested in their people, and they are interested in performance. So we had to kind of change basically our marketing, our strategy, because everybody knows when you start feeling good, you learn how to get a better night's sleep, you know how to take care of, all this stuff, your energy level, you have better focus, you have better motivation, then your outcome is huge. So from a business standpoint, number one, we could touch more people, and then those people share it with others, and it just keeps spreading. And our goal at On Target Living is we really want to touch 10 million people in the next 5 years. And we have to do that in a larger scale. And what we're doing with is like talking to people like yourself, and they start spreading the love, and it's one thing after another. And then the next thing you know, it's a lifestyle that people can sustain, because we're not getting healthier. I mean, in 1960, 1 in 4,000 people had type 2 diabetes in the United States. Today, it's 1 in 4, trending to 1 in 3. So with all the better doctors and health professionals and hospitals and workout facilities, we're not going in a better direction. So that's our mission, is how do you help people, help the United States, help the planet be better? And so that's really where my drive kept coming. I mean, I'll be 63 years old in the fall. I'm like, I'm not slowing down. I'm ramping up. So
yeah,
anyway,
I'm right there with you.
Yep, here we go.
I know. It's like, I still, and it's interesting because I was hearing the other day, Joan London was talking about how it used to be when you hit your 60s, you were kind of like almost writing your obituary, but now you can have 3-4 more decades. And it's just laying that foundation of the health and the mental and the spiritual. Do you find that employers are, once you come in to speak, that they are open to being more proactive in the healthcare of their employees, as far as maybe having a gym or having you speak more? I mean, do you find that they are like, yeah, there is a payoff to this, so to speak?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, many organizations, and it's changing very quickly, but many of them have wellness programs. And the first question we ask them, that's fantastic, but how many people participate? Mm-hmm. Participation is really low. Or, we already have a gym and we offer yoga and cardio classes and whatever. Okay, so you have 1,000 people in your building and you have the same 20 people doing it each week. That's not what we're after. We're after, like, okay, let's look at your entire workforce. And then sometimes they'll put us in the bucket with HR and say, hey, our healthcare costs are too high or whatever. We're not coming in from that angle. We're coming in from performance, strictly performance. People, if you looked at stress in the United States today, most stress comes from the workforce. It should be an amazing place to go to have this mental health and not mental problems. So that's what's facing the United States today. I mean, people are on their electronics too much. They don't have any downtime. So again, we're looking at how do you build a culture? Because if you can get people to have energy and they start having better health, healthcare costs disappear anyway. I mean, most of our money in healthcare is directly related to lifestyle. So why are we not looking at that? Because again, healthcare just keeps going up and up. We can't make it more efficient. We just got to use it less. It's pretty simple. This is a culture change. And so when they bring us in for the first time, they're realizing really quickly that their people love the message. Because the initially thing is, oh, I don't think our people are going to love it. Well, that's my job. My job is to get inside your heart and say, hey, listen, why wouldn't I want to feel better? Nobody wants to feel crummy. They just think it's going to be too much work. So when you get into corporations initially, that's the hard part. Once we get in, we're in. Because now they see it. And some of the organizations we work with right now, some of the biggest ones in the world, they use this over and over and over and over. And sometimes they get frustrated a little bit. Just why I am is like, how come we're not doing more of this in Michigan? Why do I need to fly around the world when we can do more of it in Michigan? Why wouldn't they want to have their people feel better and be better? But sometimes from a leadership standpoint, they don't have that same thought process themselves. You know, they're working 80 hours a week. They're not sleeping. So when we get leadership to buy into it and understand how important it is, that's when we really get maximum results with the organization, including lower healthcare costs.
You mentioned something about micro breaks.
Yeah, so I'm in my home office today. So I'm going to raise my desk up. So a good portion of my day, I'm going to be standing. So when I'm standing, the first thing I'm going to do is I get on a call and I'm going to do some stretching. And then I might do some up dog, down dog. And I might do some trunk twists. And I might actually do like high knees while I'm just standing here talking on the phone. That's a micro break.
Okay.
Or I might say, okay, today I'm going to go and lay on my foam roller. I have a foam roller over here. And I'm going to lay on that foam roller for a minute and work on my diaphragmatic breathing. If you're trying to perform at a high level, you have to take breaks. It'd be like going out and running 5 miles. I can run 5 miles in a certain amount of time. But if you said, hey, I want you to run, a quarter of a mile, how fast can you run there? And then take a little break, run fast. So that's the same premise. So the other thing too is a micro break could be just getting some water, making sure you got the stuff around you, create this environment. So that's what I mean by a micro break. Go to the bathroom, take a little walk, go outside, do whatever you have right now. That's it. Because what happens is we get on our phones or we get on our electronics, and the next thing you know, 4 or 5 hours have gone by, and now my back's bothering me, my hips are bothering me. So that's what a micro break is. So people are trying to perform at a high level, whether it's at work, at their office, or at home or whatever. They need to take these little breaks. Could be a breathing break, could be stretching. Again, simple things they can do to help them calm their mind and relax the body.
What about the person that's in the car a lot, sales type of jobs where they're always going from one appointment to another? Do you suggest pulling over into a rest area and just 10 minutes of just moving around?
Yeah, so to me, if I'm traveling, which I travel a lot, I'll take a cooler with me. So I have a soft cooler. So then I can have all my stuff in the car. I got all my food, everything I need. I got my water, all that stuff. And then from there, if I'm going to be in the car, I'm taking a break. Like if I'm going to pull over and get gas, I'm not going to be in and out real quickly. I'm going to stretch out a little bit, work on my hips, do whatever, just something to move around a little bit. So that's what I think more and more people, they have to say to themselves, I can't be sitting there any length of time, because motion creates positive emotion. So anytime I move my body a little bit, I work my lymphatic system, feels good in my body, and it could be tiny. I'm a big fan. We have too many trampolines in my house. We have too many trampolines at our work. I just get on that mini trampoline and I'll just bounce around. That's a micro break for me. And people are like, how long did you do that for? Oh, 30 seconds. And then I go back and I'm doing my stuff again. So just standing like this is okay, but it's not really doing much for the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So micro breaks, and then you have medium breaks, and then you have macro breaks. So when I'm working with companies, I really start hammering those points. Like, what is a medium break? You get a massage, you take an Epsom salt bath. This is white space stuff. Do you walk in nature? Do you take a 24-hour electronic break? How many people ever do that? And that's craziness, isn't it?
It is.
Can you imagine taking 24 hours without looking at your electronics? People are like, oh my gosh, it's so freeing. Motion is not just about the body looking better, it's what it does for my mind.
Yes.
And I tell people all the time, the number one benefit of moving your body regularly is what it does for my mind. So there's never been a better time to develop some of these habits than we are right now. And we're talking about all its mental health challenges. Again, we're isolated. Human beings are not meant to be isolated. So you need to do a lot of these things to keep your mind. And again, it could be multiple times during the day. But I think that's what's people have understanding. Right now, we've never done more webinars. Our webinar business is going through the roof. And the reason being is people are really now more concerned about their health. It's a great time to develop some habits. And a lot of it has to do with getting people to do more movement, along with how they eat and how they rest and whatever. So it's a great time to do that. But I think a lot of organizations, the hardest part to teach is getting enough rest. They want to learn all about the nutrition. They want to tell me how to work, but you got to understand, you got to have these recovery breaks. And if you don't, people are not going to be their best or feel their best.
How can someone really feel like they're getting the nutrition they need, but also within a budget?
Yeah, so there's a couple thoughts on. Number one is I think people have to look at, sometimes you have to kind of change your mindset a little bit there with food is medicine. And so it's powerful. So again, I play a little more offense than defense, but it's interesting right now, we spend probably, I think 50% of our income or money that we spend on food is eating out. So that's where we're spending a lot of money. And I want people to support the restaurants and all that kind of stuff, but just keep that thought process in mind. The more you eat at home, which we're doing right now, your budget's going to come right down, because anytime you make something at home, generally it's going to be healthier for you. And number two, it's generally going to be less expensive. So from that's just a thought process at the very beginning. And then you look at basics. You know, there's nothing cheaper than oatmeal. If you go to a grocery store and you buy a big box cereal, those boxes of cereal are $5. Well,
They are.
I can get oatmeal, which is, real deal oatmeal. We have our own oatmeal. We get it in these 50-pound bags. There's nothing cheaper. It's like $3 for a big container. So then I start looking at things like potatoes. They're very inexpensive. Apples are generally inexpensive. So when you start eating more source foods, get close to the source, the price goes down and then the quality goes up. So what I sometimes tell groups is, basically in the 70s, we're consuming about 2,000, 2,500 calories a person. In the United States today, we're consuming around 4,200 to 4,500 calories per person. But the quality of those calories are gone. It's the processed pizzas, the macaroni and cheeses that you can buy a lot of that stuff, but you're not really fueling the body. When you get more nutrients for people, they can actually eat less, but they get more. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. And when people are eating more quality foods, they're going to have a tendency not to overeat. So even though it might be a little bit more expensive, but you're probably not, like when people, like this morning, I had oatmeal on the run, 100% rolled oats, throw some nuts in there, throw some fruit in there, some cacao, a little bit of plant-based milk. That's pennies. I think it just starts slowly, get the real staples going. Again, I see breakfast as an easy one to make the quality go up and the price go down. I'm a big fan of flax seeds, chia seeds. They're very inexpensive, omega-3 fats. I'm a big fan of spirulina chlorella. It's like a multivitamin on steroids, and it's about 30 cents a day. So these are things that I have people start with. And again, depending on whatever budget there are, they can afford it.
When you've mentioned before about the source, can you just explain to someone that's probably even new to some of the nutrition side or reevaluating their nutrition, what are you talking about the source? And does that go back to that, I had it tabbed here. Does that go back to this, the food target, when you talk about going back to the source, is it getting to that?
Yeah, so when you look at all the diets out there, I mean, in the 80s, it was the high carb, no fat. And then the 90s, it was the high protein. And excuse me. And today it's the keto, which is the high fat. So what we keep understanding is that we really got to focus on the quality, and that's the source. Where does it come from? So if you have an apple, that's the source. Then it goes to applesauce. Now we're getting away from the source, and the apple juice and Apple Jacks, and you kind of see how it starts to roll, right?
Okay.
So when you get closer to the source, the price goes down and the quality goes up.
Okay.
And so now I don't have to teach people how to read a label or a GMO or organic. If I'm getting close to the source, generally I can't go wrong. So if somebody says a tomato is bad, because a lot of people are saying nightshades and all this is this and that, No, you're not gonna get people so unhealthy. Like, you don't eat. I heard this yesterday. Don't eat tomatoes if you have arthritis. Seriously, that tomato's not causing you to have arthritis. There's so many other factors. But as you get people to eat closer to the source, it's easier for them to understand, and then the quality of the food goes up, and the absorption also goes up. And so I used to say, hey, can you help me read the label? I can, but I want to show you a third grader, second grader, I can teach you how to do this. And that's where the food target came up. It's like, I want to make it simple for people, carbs, proteins, and fats, and then slowly you upgrade whatever you're doing. And as you get closer to the middle, that's the source. When you're working with people on, does the nutrients in the ground or whatever, we have to just do the best we can with where we're at. So the goal, I always tell people, is buy as local as you can. If I can buy local food, that's going to be my better option. If I'm buying honey, I want to buy local honey. So I'm always trying to support the community and buy in locally. And then from there, I look at some of the maybe things that I want to add to my diet that maybe optimize, and we call those superfoods. So I'm a big fan, as you know, cod liver oil, and we have our own. It's called, from Dutch Harbor, Alaska. It's high in vitamin D3. So I don't have to take vitamin D3 because it's in the cod liver oil. And our cod liver oil the livers are frozen on the boat, which keeps the high levels of vitamin D3. So we kept thinking, like, what do people need? What are they missing? Most people are missing omega-3 fats. That's the cod liver oil. That's the flax and the chia. So that's the source. Now you're saying, okay, I'm not always eating wild Alaskan salmon, or I'm not getting this. So now that's where you might add to that. So instead of adding a multivitamin or a probiotic or things that maybe you just eat foods closer to the source. So for example, if you're trying to create a great probiotic, good bacteria for the gut, you just take a spoonful of sauerkraut. Or if want to have a multivitamin, much more powerful, that's spirulina chlorella, which is freshwater algae. My point is that when people are starting eating more quality foods close to the source, more local, then the need for all these supplements start disappearing. And then they don't have to worry about, is that soil? I truly believe, we get close to our community, you're going to get everything you need to a certain level. If you have the mindset our soil is completely depleted, then what the heck are we eating? We
exactly.
have to eat, right?
Yeah.
It's like the stock market. I'm not investing in the stock market. If the stock market falls for everybody, we're all in trouble.
Yeah.
So that's my thought, is let's get close to the source, and then maybe throw some superfoods in, like cod liver oil, spirulina chlorella, maybe frozen wheatgrass, because wheatgrass is high in minerals. So that's where we start to roll with that. Are you drinking enough water?
Okay.
That's the blocking and tackling.
What about that probiotic? Is there a workaround with the sauerkraut?
Oh yeah, like a natural probiotic or prebiotic, which is, again, creating good gut, the soil. That's oatmeal. That's onions. That's bananas. That's garlic. That's simple stuff.
Good.
Probiotic, adding good bacteria to the gut, could be anything fermented, pickles, sauerkraut, kombucha, the list goes on. But apples are like a symbiotic. They're both. Spirulina chlorella is a symbiotic. They're both. So when
that's good to know.
So, and we have on our website a gut biotic chart that shows you all the foods that are pre, pro, and symbiotics. They're food. So you can take a probiotic, because again, imagine this. My sister is an occupational therapist that goes into houses, homes for people. And sometimes the families are not eating healthy. You're not going to have the kids eat sauerkraut or kombucha or whatever. So that's where a probiotic could be very helpful. But if you can get people to understand these foods are really, really good, the need for a probiotic starts to disappear.
Yeah. So I know that you've been giving us so much of your time. And so I do have some questions that people had sent in. And one of them is, what is your thoughts on fasting? I know we hear a lot about intermittent fasting now. And I just want to know if you would be able to share on that.
I think anytime you allow the body to have time to cleanse itself is a great thing, because we need to have a fast where the body has time to rejuvenate its cells and the gut health and all this stuff. So again, step number one is people have to give it time to heal. And generally that our time frame is at least 12 hours. So what we teach is 12 to 14 hours of an overnight fast. It's easy. It's not a diet. So now I can be very social, I can do stuff, but I really keep in my mind 12 to 14 hours. If you want to go longer, you have to be a little bit more skilled on what your knowledge is. Because when I find people are going the 16, 18 hours without eating, and they have that little window of eating, they're probably going to be missing nutrients. So if I don't eat breakfast, I'm probably not eating any ancient grains for most people. If I have this little window, I'm probably missing certain nutrients. So you have to be, in my opinion, you have to be relatively have the knowledge and the skill to do that. And then again, I think intermittent fasting could be absolutely fantastic for people. But if it turns into a diet where I'm really like, I can't eat that because I can't eat now and whatever. And the other thing too, for me, 16 to 18 hours in that little window, I don't really feel my best. I mean, I can get leaner but I don't feel energized. I don't feel like I'm really the vibrant self I want. So again, I'm really a big fan of going 12 to 14 hours without eating. And then when you start eating, I'm generally wanting to eat every 4 hours.
Okay.
So every 4 hours I'm eating something so I have that optimal energy.
Another question came in on, and I know you talk about the source, but it's on adaptogens. And so you have some companies out there that are bringing that, like a liquid adaptogen, help reduce the stress. I know we talked a lot about stress and with movement stuff, but this person wanted to know what your thoughts were on adaptogens.
Well, my thoughts on pretty much anything like that is like, okay, what do you want it to do? And so that's number one. What do you want it to do? For example, if you're taking a baby aspirin, what do you want that baby aspirin to do? Well, I want it to thin my blood and I want it to decrease inflammation. Okay, I get that. So that's what you want. Well, what if I could give you a food that does that? Like cod liver oil is a natural anticoagulant. It also is anti-inflammatory. And oh, by the way, it doesn't mess up my gut. So if I'm trying to get people to be more calm, they can eat anything they want if they don't know how to control their brain. And that's basically through how they breathe and all that kind of stuff. Number two, you want to bring foods to the party that calm the body. So again, for example, B vitamins are very calming. So if that's the case, I want to be able to calm my mind. I got to make sure I'm consuming foods that are high in B vitamins or high in magnesium. Okay, so now we're on to something. Back to asking better questions. Well, oatmeal is high in B vitamins. Well, I don't eat oatmeal. Okay, so now we're deficient in B vitamins. Or I don't eat root vegetables like potatoes. Okay, I'm not consuming serotonin foods. Or I'm not, you can see how this starts to roll. So now we're missing nutrients. But the goal is to have this result. And so what are people doing? They're taking all these supplements. And that's not the answer. So when I'm teaching people to understand the power of what they eat, because food is medicine, then these supplements start to disappear. And now the body works more in harmony than versus, I could take, everybody's like, oh, I need to take vitamin C for my immune system. No, eat an orange. Wow. You mean I can eat an orange? Yeah, eat an orange. Or if I want to calm my mind, I need to have B vitamins and serotonin boosting foods, and the list goes on. So you can see how this starts to go. But we're not looking at it that way. I'd rather just take that immune booster or that thing for my brain or this and that. Now it's a chemistry set. And now their digestion's messed up and their body's not working together. Imagine you having this amazing body and you roll in nutrients that the body can break down the way it should versus just dumping this in or dumping this in. And that's what I've seen in my profession, that people are just trying to just pick and choose and whatever. I'm like, just eat. That's the genesis of the target. Eat more in the center, you cover all the ground.
So if someone's doing like a plant-based moringa powder to use like in a smoothie or in a water drink, it's plant-based, filled with the vitamins and minerals. That's still okay to use if you can't get all the foods in, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, you're getting herbs and, things close to the source like turmeric or, whatever it might be, ginger, cinnamon, fantastic. We're getting close to the source. But what we're not really talking much about is like, that's not foundational. Foundational is, are you drinking enough water? Are you eating good carbohydrates? Are you eating healthy fats, good proteins? Once people start building that habit, are you doing your breathing? And then we keep building up the hierarchy. So if you're going to see a financial advisor, you're not talking about legacy and all this stuff going on here. Hey, what's your emergency fund look like? What's your insurance look like? Are you building this base first? And then we just keep moving up. And that's what we find in my space. There's so much confusion. I'm just going to grasp this. I'm going to do this powder or this protein drink or whatever, but you haven't even built the foundation. So the results are not what they want them to get. And then they grasp. Think about this. The diet industry is almost a $70 billion industry with a 97% failure rate.
The next question I have comes from my son. He's going to be 16 in June and athletic. And his question had to do with protein powder. Now, there was a time last year where he was getting a lot of his protein from foods and things like that, and we were trying to mix and match. But his question was, should he stay with that, or can he supplement with a protein powder? And what your thoughts were?
Well, again, everybody, my goal having this conversation with you is everybody's got to kind of maneuver their way, and they're making it better. So my initial thing was, if you're going to do protein powder in a smoothie or whatever you're going to do, get a better protein powder. So is it plant-based? Is it animal-based? Where's it coming from? Or is it in the big gigantic container that's got a bunch of crap in it, right? So number one is get better protein powder. Could be plant-based. There's lots of options out there. Number two is, okay, maybe I don't want to put all that in my body, that protein isolate. Maybe I want to use other things that are high in protein, like hemp seeds. Hemp seeds are high in protein, but they're also high in omega-6 fat. So if I have a 16-year-old, I have 4 grandkids now, but if I had a 16-year-old today, I would be teaching them to make a healthier protein smoothie by using source foods such as hemp seeds or Brazil nuts or anything like that. Because now I get back to, what's the point of the protein powder? I want to add more protein. For what? Well, I want to have, connective tissue, stronger body, whatever. Okay. Well, your body can only absorb so much protein at a time. My first bodybuilding contest, I went from 170 pounds to 232 pounds. And I was consuming about 300 grams of protein a day. Casein shakes, all that stuff. This is in the early 80s. And then I competed at 170. I lost 62 pounds. So my goal was to get stronger and bigger and whatever. And I looked good up on stage, but it put a ton of stress in my body. So as time went on, I haven't used a protein powder in probably 20 years because, again, I know it puts more stress in my liver and my kidneys.
And one last question someone had asked what your morning routine is. Do you have a fitness routine that you do, a nutrition routine that you have?
Yeah, I call it the rhythm of life. Everybody has a rhythm. Many of us are out of our rhythm now, but I really like to get people, and I talk to them about that. What's your rhythm like today? What's your rhythm? Because when we create a rhythm, we all know this, we get in rhythm, then everything starts to flow. So my daughter talks a lot about flow, but I like to think about once I get the rhythm, then the flow happens. So the same thing, I'm like my dog Floyd. I do the same thing every day. I get up in the morning, I drink water. And then I take 5 ice cubes of frozen wheatgrass. And then from there, I consume my cod liver oil. And I'm done. And then from there, either I'm going to go work out or I'm going to eat. And my eating is always relatively the same. It's either amaranth, teff, oatmeal. I eat ancient grains and variety of nuts and seeds and fruit on there and plant-based milk. That's my morning routine. If I am going to go work out, either work out at the MAC, I'll work out at our headquarters, or I'll work out at home. Today, my wife and I are working at home, and we're going to do an on-target living cardio workout with my daughter, Kristen, and then we're going to do an upper body strength training with my son, Matt, on the video. My wife likes to watch the videos. So that's my routine, and then I'm going to eat lunch, and generally in the afternoon, I'm going to always eat some type of fruit, like an apple or a banana or an orange, and usually macadamia nuts and Brazil nuts, and then I eat dinner, and that's how I kind of roll. So that's my normal morning routine. I had a really good, and I still have a great friend, Matthew Cross, that I've done a lot of work with in training with this guy, and he's out of Connecticut, but he always talked about the first 15%. Get the first 15% right, and it's amazing what will happen the rest of your day. So I always focus on getting the beginning of my day right.
That's good to know. We have other questions, but I want to be respectful of your time. So do you have anything else that you would like to share with the viewing audience today?
Well, I think the one thing I really like to have people understand is that you have the power. And I think we need to play a lot more offense than defense. And no matter where people are in their life, their health, whatever they want to, wherever they are, the human body has amazing ability to heal itself if you put it in a better environment. Better immune system, better energy, better health, better blood work, whatever it might be. And that's really what I've seen in my career, 30 plus years, is that the human body has amazing ability to make these changes if you give it the opportunity. And so when people have that, and then they build one habit at a time, they build the process that they love, then the magic takes over. So that's my message for everybody, is that everybody has the power.
Amen. Well, Chris, I've enjoyed so much talking to you. I'm like a sponge. Everything you share really resonates with me, but also I just want to remind everyone to go to his website. He has videos on his YouTube channel, and get on his email list. And also the app. You have that app now that people can have available to them, and walks them through some different things. So there's so many resources that you have, and plus go to his store, because I want to get that cod liver oil and
the cod liver oil and the spirulina chlorella, and
that.
you can get your oatmeal.
I'm going to get all three of those. So
we have podcasts. Just tell everybody we also have 2 podcasts that come out each month.
Okay, great. But anyway, so Chris, thank you again so much, and we will get this video uploaded. Thank you.
See you,
Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.